Hermes was never just a brand, it was a symbol of wealth, of legacy, of elite access you couldn't buy with money alone. But in 2025, that symbol cracked. What once stood as the gold standard of luxury is now the face of a viral scandal that's turned the entire industry upside down. A single TikTok video, grainy, raw, and recorded thousands of miles from Paris, has ignited global outrage. Not because it was flashy, but because it exposed what many feared was true. The luxury we're sold may be built on illusion. The footage? Allegedly a Hermes production line, not in France, but deep inside a Chinese factory. Workers seen assembling what appear to be Birkin bags for just a few $100s each. Bags that retail for over $20,000. The video didn't just go viral, it detonated. Over 30 million views in days. And the fallout has been immediate. Stores are empty, wait lists are vanishing, resale markets are collapsing, and consumers who once bragged about owning a Birkin are now asking a chilling question: have we all been scammed? Because Hermes didn't just sell leather. They sold status, secrecy, scarcity. And now, with TikTok pulling back the curtain, the brand once thought to be untouchable is in freefall. But this story isn't just about Hermes. It's about the luxury industry at large, and whether the myths it's built on can survive the age of radical transparency. It only took 90 seconds to start a global reckoning. A TikTok uploaded by a Chinese factory worker showing rows of leather, tools, and half-assembled handbags didn't seem like much until he casually revealed the punchline. These weren't dupes. These weren't knockoffs. According to the video, the bags being produced were allegedly Hermes Birkins. The ones that sell for $20,000, $30,000, even $38,000. And just like that, the illusion shattered. Because this wasn't a YouTuber speculating behind a microphone. This was someone filming from the inside. The claim was simple but explosive. Hermes was outsourcing the bulk of its bag production to Chinese factories, where workers were assembling Birkins for as little as $400 each. Then, the bags were reportedly shipped to France, where they'd receive a final stitch, maybe a hot stamp, and the legally acceptable, but now ethically controversial label, Made in France. The video didn't just go viral, it detonated. Within hours, the algorithm picked it up. By day 3, it had tens of millions of views and a growing army of furious viewers questioning everything they thought they knew about luxury. The backlash was unprecedented. Influencers who had once flaunted their Birkin collections were now deleting posts. Handbag review YouTubers began dissecting frames of the video, comparing the factory footage to official Hermes promo material. Reddit exploded. Threads titled "Expose the Birkin Lie" flooded fashion forums. Consumers began sharing receipts, factory codes, and sourcing inconsistencies in hopes of piecing together the truth. And one recurring question dominated every platform. If Hermes is lying, who else is? But it wasn't just about Hermes anymore. The viral video tapped into a growing consumer suspicion that luxury, as an industry, was selling more fantasy than fact. That Made in France might be more marketing than reality. That $30,000 bags might not reflect craftsmanship, but branding and deception. The rage wasn't just about where a bag was made, it was about betrayal. Because if people are willing to spend the price of a car or a college semester on a handbag, they expect transparency. And now, that trust was in free fall. The luxury world thrives on perception. Lines out the door, wait lists months long, and associates guarding merchandise like museum curators. But after the video went viral, that image started to crumble in real time. Boutique insiders began whispering. Foot traffic slowed. Suddenly, stores that once required appointments and insider connections were quiet. Hermes locations in New York, Paris, Beverly Hills, and Shanghai, usually buzzing with energy and exclusivity, started looking empty. Customers weren't just staying away, they were recoiling. Employees in high-end shopping districts reported something they'd never seen before. Silence. No more frenzied buyers asking to see what's in the back. No more whispered negotiations about spending thresholds to earn a shot at a Birkin. Even the mythical wait list, the status symbol of status symbols, began to dry up. Longtime VIPs ghosted. Personal shoppers canceled appointments. And for the first time in recent memory, the ultra-wealthy weren't bragging about their bags. They were hiding them. Social media only poured fuel on the fire. Influencers who had built entire careers flexing Hermes hauls began quietly archiving their posts. TikTokers staged luxury burn videos. Reddit threads encouraged mass reselling, and YouTubers who once made glowing reviews were now turning their lenses toward exposés. It wasn't about style anymore. It was about shame. People who once wore Birkins like armor were now questioning whether they'd been manipulated, whether their $30,000 investment was worth anything more than a marketing illusion. And it didn't stop at perception. The resale market, long a secondary status game for Hermes collectors, began to falter. Sites that once hosted private waitlists for gently used Birkins saw a sharp drop in demand. Some sellers slashed prices by thousands. Others pulled listings entirely, because it's hard to sell a dream once the spell is broken. And for many, that's what Hermes had been all along. Not just a bag, but a promise. Of legacy, of heritage, of exclusivity. But now consumers were waking up, and they weren't angry because the bags were expensive. They were angry because they no longer knew what exactly they'd paid for. For decades, Hermes sold more than just leather. It sold mythology. Each Birkin was said to be touched only by one artisan. Someone who trained for years, maybe even a decade, before they were allowed to craft the holy grail of handbags. The process? Romanticized. The price? Justified. Buyers weren't just paying for craftsmanship, they were buying into a legacy of precision, patience, and generational skill. Every stitch, every curve, every handle was marketed as a work of art. But now, that story is under siege. Because if the viral footage is to be believed, the dream of one artisan, one bag is just that, a dream. The reality looks more like a production line, with multiple workers, machines, and shortcuts. 4 hours for the handle, 20 hours per bag? TikTok commenters scoffed. One user put it plainly, "They want us to believe this is couture, but it's closer to IKEA." The romance of the atelier has been replaced by fluorescent factory lighting, and once that visual is in your head, it's hard to go back. Hermes, to its credit, responded swiftly. They doubled down on their legacy messaging, emphasizing their vertically integrated production model. Their official statement was dripping with heritage. "We do not subcontract," they insisted. "Our bags are crafted in our own workshops by our own artisans in France." But to many, the statement felt like too little, too late. Because no matter how elegant the language, the internet had already made up its mind. And no PR campaign, not even from Hermes, can outpace a viral TikTok storm. The truth is, in the luxury world, perception is value. A Birkin isn't just a bag, it's a signal of taste, of wealth, of access. But what happens when that signal becomes questionable? When the craftsmanship you believed in turns out to be assembly line efficiency dressed in a Parisian stamp? The luxury illusion works because we want to believe. We want to think we're buying into something rare, special, and sacred. But once the curtain is pulled back and you see mass production where you expected magic, that illusion collapses. And when it does, the price tag suddenly feels a lot heavier. As the outrage spread, Hermes did what luxury brands rarely do in public. They went on the offensive. Within days of the viral factory video, Hermes filed a sweeping lawsuit targeting the Chinese manufacturers allegedly involved. The charges? Defamation, intellectual property theft, brand dilution. According to their legal team, the video didn't just damage Hermes's reputation, it spread false, harmful claims that could unravel decades of trust. And so began the next phase of this scandal, a high-stakes international courtroom battle. But here's where it gets even messier. The manufacturers hit back, hard. Instead of backing down, some began hinting at counterclaims, alleging that Hermes had long exploited outsourced labor while maintaining the illusion of exclusivity. The whispers were loud enough to make headlines. These factories, they claim, weren't rogue operators. They were contracted, trained, and controlled. And if those allegations reach a courtroom, the scandal won't just be about TikTok exposure, it will be about legal discovery, emails, contracts, invoices, proof. And if that proof surfaces, it won't just threaten Hermes, it could change everything. Because the moment a court confirms that a $30,000 handbag was primarily made in Shenzhen, the luxury illusion collapses on paper, not just in public opinion. Hermes would no longer be battling social media influencers. They'd be battling evidence. And evidence sticks. Courtrooms don't care about branding. Judges don't care about heritage. If the documents show a contradiction between the marketing and the manufacturing, Hermes' entire business model could be on the line. This isn't just brand protection, it's survival, and Hermes knows it. That's why their legal filings are aggressive, expansive, and globally coordinated. They're not just trying to stop the spread of misinformation, they're trying to shut it down before it forces the world to reevaluate how luxury really works. But the irony? The more they fight, the more attention they draw, and the more eyes that turn toward their once mysterious supply chain. In trying to silence the exposé, Hermes may have accidentally made the controversy impossible to ignore. When Hermes launched its legal counterattack, it didn't just send shockwaves through its own PR team. It triggered a full-blown panic across the entire luxury fashion ecosystem. Behind closed doors, the reaction was immediate. Emergency meetings, confidential audits, legal departments combing through old supply contracts. Because what happened to Hermes wasn't just a scandal, it was a mirror. And every high-end brand suddenly had to ask the same uncomfortable question: are we next? From Chanel and Dior to Prada and Louis Vuitton, internal sources reported a wave of crisis management. Some brands began quietly pulling products from shelves. Others ordered third-party audits on specific supply chains. PR teams were reportedly instructed to monitor TikTok and Reddit daily and prepare immediate response plans should similar videos surface. Even smaller niche luxury labels began re-examining their Made in Italy and Made in France tags, double-checking whether a zipper from China or a lining stitched in Turkey could become the next social media bomb. But here's the truth that luxury brands don't want to admit. Hermes might have been first, but they're not alone. Global outsourcing isn't a scandal, it's an industry norm. While Hermes claims full vertical integration, most other brands have long used partial outsourcing to meet demand. Sometimes it's just for hardware, sometimes it's leather cutting, sometimes it's everything but the final stitch. And that's the danger, because if consumers start seeing all luxury brands as playing a shell game with labels and labor, the entire pricing model becomes indefensible. That's why the panic is so intense. This isn't about one video anymore. It's about a truth that's been lurking in plain sight. If Hermes, the brand synonymous with craftsmanship and secrecy, can be exposed like this, then no brand is safe. Executives know it. Investors know it. Even celebrities who've been gifted luxury items are reportedly getting briefed on what to say or not say if asked. Because the minute another TikTok drops showing a Dior saddlebag being assembled in a factory in Dongguan, the illusion isn't just cracked, it's shattered. And once that happens, the trust that powers the $400 billion luxury industry could begin to evaporate, fast. If Hermes underestimated anything, it wasn't the lawsuit, it was the internet. Because the moment the factory footage went viral, social media didn't just react, it organized. TikTok exploded with creators dissecting every frame, pausing on serial codes, comparing stitching patterns, and overlaying official Hermes marketing with grainy factory clips. Hashtags like Birkin scam, luxury lies, and I made in Shenzhen began trending globally. Influencers, fashion watchdogs, and even ex-employees joined the storm, sharing stories, receipts, and whispered rumors that until now had lived only in group chats and NDA-silenced DMs. YouTube, once a platform for luxury unboxings and glowing handbag reviews, pivoted hard. Longtime Hermes fans who once gushed about craftsmanship were now questioning everything. Are we just buying hype? Have we been lied to for decades? One viral video titled, "I spent $60,000 on Hermes, here's why I regret it," racked up millions of views in days. Even Reddit, home to niche handbag communities and luxury insiders, turned hostile. Threads once filled with wishlist advice and collector tips became forums of exposé, where former loyalists posted screenshots, insider messages, and calls for transparency. The most telling sign of the shift? Influencers who built entire careers around flaunting Birkins and Kellys began distancing themselves from the brand. Some archived old content, Others came forward to admit they'd long suspected something was off. One even broke down in tears in a TikTok saying, "I feel scammed. I really thought I was investing in art, not something that rolled off an assembly line." The internet had made its decision. Luxury could no longer hide behind French accents and glossy marketing. And that's the nightmare scenario for legacy brands. Because this isn't about proving guilt in court, it's about losing control of the narrative. Once consumers start asking questions in public, they don't stop. They ask where the leather came from, who stitched it, why a 5-figure price tag doesn't come with full transparency. The social media era has democratized scrutiny, and brands that once relied on mystique are now being interrogated by millions. Not quietly, not politely, but loudly, with hashtags, receipts, and rage. And in that environment, the myth of luxury doesn't just fade, it combusts. For the luxury fashion industry, the Hermes scandal wasn't just a PR crisis, it was a wake-up call. Because in the aftermath, something remarkable happened. Consumers didn't just get mad, they got smarter. Buyers who once blindly followed brand prestige began asking questions, real questions. Not just, where was this made, but who made it? How were they paid? Why am I being charged 5 figures for a product built in a global supply chain that looks suspiciously similar to fast fashion? The veil lifted, and in its place came a new kind of luxury consumer, awake, informed, and unwilling to be fooled again. This wasn't just performative outrage either, it became action. Influencers shifted their content, reviewers stopped unboxing and started investigating. TikTok creators began compiling sourcing receipts, supply chain maps, and trademark filings. What used to be fan pages turned into watchdog accounts. Consumers demanded transparency audits, ethical sourcing disclosures, and real footage from brand ateliers, not just curated documentaries, but raw, unfiltered proof. The mystique that once built billion-dollar houses was no longer enough. People wanted receipts, and brands weren't ready. Hermès, Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and Dior had built empires on secrecy, on the idea that scarcity equals value. That mystery means magic, but the magic is gone. Now, even wealthy consumers, those who used to brag about skipping the Birkin waitlist, are stepping back. "I'll buy if you show me everything," one viral commenter wrote. "Until then, I'm out." Because it's not just about ethics, it's about trust. And in luxury, trust is the one thing more valuable than leather, gold, or diamonds. Once it's broken, no amount of brand polish can repair it. That's the shift. We're entering an era where brands can no longer hide behind buzzwords like heritage, exclusivity, or craftsmanship without backing them up with facts. Consumers are no longer hypnotized by logos. They want origin stories with proof, not fairy tales. And if a brand can't answer the hard questions, if it can't show every stitch, every step, and every worker behind the product, it risks becoming irrelevant. Because luxury in 2025 isn't about labels, it's about legitimacy. And any brand that can't adapt is standing on borrowed time. Hermes may survive this scandal. It has the money, the legacy, and the global reach to weather storms that would sink smaller brands. But make no mistake, something irreversible has changed. The age of blind brand worship is over. This wasn't just a glitch in their image, it was a rupture in trust. And in luxury fashion, trust is the foundation. Without it, a $30,000 handbag becomes just a handbag. A logo becomes meaningless. A legacy becomes a liability. And consumers, once dazzled by the illusion, are now demanding something the industry was never prepared to give: the truth. Because what started with one TikTok video has now rewritten the rules. No longer can brands rely on heritage as a shield or mystique as a smokescreen. The new consumer wants facts: where it was made, who made it, what they were paid, and how the cost is justified. They want transparency not as a bonus but as a baseline. And in this new era, brands that cling to secrecy will be left behind. The companies that thrive will be the ones who show the stitches, the faces, the factories, and still stand proud. For Hermes, this is a moment of reckoning. It can dig deeper into litigation and double down on image control, or it can pivot. It can embrace visibility, open its workshops, invite it in the same public it once kept at a distance. Because in the digital age, Credibility isn't crafted behind velvet ropes, it's earned in the open. And if Hermes truly believes in the artistry it's built its name on, now is the time to prove it. Not with lawsuits, not with press statements, but with access, accountability, and unfiltered truth. The rules have changed, the buyer has changed, and the brands that want to stay relevant must change too. This isn't just about Hermes. It's about an industry that has coasted on illusion for far too long. The new era isn't about luxury as a dream. It's about luxury as proof. Verified, visible, and ethically made. Because if customers can't believe in the story anymore, they'll stop paying for the brand. And when that happens, it won't be influencers or TikTokers who tear down the house of luxury. It'll be the very people who once made it possible.